Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing inspiring stories from business owners, entrepreneurs, and real estate investors on the pursuit of wealth and financial freedom. This month's episodes of Inspire to Invest have been brought to you by Knock Knock. Hey everybody, welcome to Inspire to Invest. I've got Aisha Govani here with us from Hamilton, Ontario. She's a real estate investor, landlord, and the co-founder of Midterm Rental Properties, a furnished rental company placing 30-day to 6-month stays for corporate clients. She leads a dedicated team focused on helping investors across Canada maximize their property usage and their profitability. She also plays a pivotal role in co-facilitating the midterm rental coaching program to guide investors towards innovative real estate strategies. Her influence also extends through hosting and co-hosting roles on various real estate podcasts and TV shows, further expanding her impact within the industry. So with that said, how are you today?
How are you, Serena? So nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So you've done so much, it feels like in a little bit of a relatively short time. Maybe you can take us back to the beginning and really where real estate and real estate investing all came into the picture.
Yeah, great question. So probably about 10 years ago when, you know what? I'll start from before that. When I was very little, my dad was a real estate investor and a contractor. So I grew up around a guy who always smelled like paint.
Oh,
And he did all of his own projects by hand. So I grew up watching him
yeah,
not only build our apartment building. I watched him collect rent. I watched him empty the laundry
yeah,
lines. I watched him clean out the apartments trashed by the tenants. I watched him do all of that. So that is in my blood. And then
yeah,
about 10 years ago, I met my husband, and he had been a real estate investor for about 10 years at that point. So by marriage, I was an inherited investor, and he
yeah,
was like, we take care of the properties, we're hands-on. So I learned all of that very quickly, and I was into it anyways. I took my interior design course to then work on our own properties, and I wanted to be hands-on with the whole process.
yeah,
So that was my adult introduction into real estate. As I learned more, I kind of realized I said to my husband, if you're saying what I think you're saying, which is like, this is the way we're going to be able to stop working sooner than later,
yeah,
then I think we should double down our efforts into this because you're really
yeah,
good at it and you know a lot of stuff.
yeah,
Um, and he was, always educating himself, super involved in everything we did. So I had a lot of trust in what he was telling me.
yeah,
So he said, okay, then you need to learn more. Here's a podcast. And he gave me Sarah Larby's podcast and he said, start listening.
yeah,
So I started listening. I probably listened for like 2 years. Whenever I was in the car, I would listen to episodes. Then we started our own purchases and I was involved from the beginning on that. So then all the hands-on stuff, and he would really make me run with a lot of the stuff.
yeah.
It was
So
good.
what was your first purchase?
So we bought a fourplex in Cambridge together. Like we got married, that was the first
Yeah,
thing that I was a part of purchasing. So
yeah,
we purchased it, and then we were able to get one of them vacant. Then I was part of the whole reno, the design, and at the same time I was studying my interior design, so then I
yeah.
could use those skills and all that. So, mhm.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I thought that was funny that you mentioned you're listening to Sarah's podcast since you're at her cottage right now. So, how did you guys meet? So, you're listening to her podcast, and then, were you guys at an event together, or did you just reach out?
Yeah, great question. So I was listening to her podcast, and then we were living in Bermuda for 5 years after we got engaged. So
Oh,
then,
wow.
yes,
That's a
and
whole other story.
we're in our pre-real estate careers,
Yeah,
and well, he was always investing, but never full time. And so, when we moved back to Canada, the only thing that made sense was real estate full time. So
yeah,
then he started taking his real estate license, and I started taking my real estate license because back then I thought, well, if you're going to go full time into real estate, it makes sense to have your license.
yeah, yeah. I thought
More
the same thing.
So we all kind of start there. So
Yeah,
he was working on his, I was working on mine. He completed his much faster. I started mine after he had completed it, but in any case, I was studying to be a realtor. And I was working for some realtors, and I was doing really well as their ISA, great, but I was bored. And so I was scrolling on Instagram, and Sarah was looking for an executive assistant, and I thought, brilliant, I'm really good at all the things she needs, and I can learn along the way, and it's
yeah,
fantastic. opportunity. So I applied for the role and I got the role. And then I started working for her full time as her executive assistant.
Yeah.
And fast forward like a year and a half, after some time working for her, we decided let's start a business together. So Midterm Rentals is the one that stuck. So
Yeah.
now we're, at the end of our third year running that together as business partners and co-founders.
Yeah.
And fast forward to right now.
And I think it's such a smart strategy for someone that is listening and doesn't fully understand why that's so favorable, especially in an area that's not necessarily landlord tenant friendly. Can you talk a little bit about the nuances of that particular strategy and why that could be, you know, maybe better to consider than having a long-term tenant?
Yeah, fantastic question. So a lot of hosts come to us because they've been burned. They have not received rent, their places have been trashed, and they've had to pay far beyond the amount that they made money on renting it in the
Yeah.
first place. It can be really traumatizing too, like trying to get access to your property. We're going through it now. We've been trying to get someone out for almost 2 years now.
Oh
So
my gosh.
know the length of those trials and once you've been sort of through that process, you realize, okay, is it worth it? And then the question is when they come to me and they're like, I don't want to do long term anymore. How does midterm work? And I was like, well, it's the beauty of longer term stays, so less turnover, less
Yeah.
party, less seasonal stay. And no headache, and then you have full access to your property at any time you want it back for whatever reason is your reason. You don't even
Yeah.
have to tell us. It is, here's my 30-day notice. Only like we just ask, like, let our bookings be done. Like
Yeah.
commit in return, we have the bookings, but it's a very easy thing because we're not here to make your lives harder.
Yeah.
And the guests we have are great because they are also, a lot of them are homeowners themselves,
Yeah.
anyone looking for work. So it's the niche of the guest that makes it make sense because they're going to take care of your home. They're
Yeah.
there 6 to 12 months. They are homeowners themselves, and then you maintain control over your property, and you truly never have to worry about any future choices because sometimes you have to make
Yeah.
choices in 3 to 6 month period we didn't even know might happen. So
Yeah. And I think that's actually to your point, like I think honestly the LTV is broken. Like just the fact that it takes that long. And if there's even one small mistake that you have to go back to the beginning. And I think at the end of the day, and I know there's probably conflicting opinions on this because I'm not saying that we shouldn't take care of people that, they need affordable housing and things like that. But I think as a property owner, I think with adequate time, you should be able to take back your property and do whatever you want with it in a period of time, whether that's 6 months or whatever that could be, right? So it just blows my mind that things have kind of gotten to this point here. And, for me personally, that's why I never invested here. But there are better ways. And I guess as the agency, like, are you working primarily with insurance companies or traveling nurses? Like, what would be the bulk of your tenant base that are coming in for these longer term, like midterm stays?
So our midterm guest profile would be relocators, recruiters, insurance claim adjusters,
Yeah,
perhaps homeowner going through renovation. We work with homeowners in between closings, any B2B travel, a lot of service providers. So let's
yeah,
say someone is moving into a region to set up all of the EV chargers.
yeah.
They're there for 6 to 9 month period. Arborists travel. Like there was a big storm in the Kawarthas a few months
Yeah.
ago. A bunch
We were impacted by that as well. So,
the
yeah,
arborists are still down here and it's going to take them months, so they need a
yeah,
place to stay. As we're sort of really diving in, we're realizing there is a lot of niche market that they don't go on Airbnb. So
yeah,
they're looking on Facebook, they're trying to figure it out all themselves
yeah,
and house a big team. So it's not just one accommodation. They're looking
yeah,
for 4 or 5 at a time. So as soon
yeah,
as they meet us, they're like, this is brilliant. They're like, what do we have to do? I'm like, send an email. Tell me
yeah,
what, and we'll look for that for you. We'll show
yeah,
you what we have. We'll even search for what you need if we don't have what you
yeah.
have.
And then you're also kind of getting like maybe above average, like long-term rents, maybe not as high as it would for a short-term rental, but you're kind of getting that sweet spot. I had spoken to someone that had a pretty big portfolio of properties in the southwest area of the United States, and he was buying up the properties for like 100 grand a piece in like St. Louis and some other places, but then you're renting them for about $2,500 a month. But what do you think, like, on $100,000 property, what's your mortgage? Like $600? You know what I mean? So it was amazing that he kind of built these teams in these places that take care of his properties there. But, the cash flow is very, very significant. If it's more control in your hand as a landlord, right? Now, obviously, I think one of the biggest challenges that any landlord may face would be things to do with tenants, but are there any other challenges or obstacles that you wanted to highlight that you've experienced on your journey to date?
So you're specifically asking about landlords and why they don't want to do
Well, not
long-term.
necessarily landlords. Like I think any landlord, like the biggest challenge usually is dealing with a tenant, depending on where you are. But for you, like, would you say your biggest challenge has been scaling? Has it been a tenant issue? Like, is there any kind of big obstacle that you've faced as you've been growing your portfolio and your business?
Yeah, I think as a dual marketplace. So essentially, we have a portfolio of homes and then we have a portfolio of guests, and we are simultaneously trying to always match the supply and demand for both. That
Yeah,
is the challenge. I will have a season where the market's not good, so people couldn't sell their homes. So now they're going to hold on to them for a year and they're going to try again later. So now I have a full portfolio of people who don't want to put a tenant in. They want something that they can get back in a year. They
yeah,
furnish it, they give it to me, and then I have a juicy portfolio, but my guests are all away on vacation or something, right?
yeah, yeah,
I'm struggling to match that. And then there's geographically, I may be getting a lot of listings in one area, but getting a lot of demand in the other. So, for example, right now, Canada, I'm getting a lot of guest inquiries because places like Airbnb, the prices are higher, it's seasonal, you're paying a lot more per night, so they
yeah,
want more affordable bookings, they come to us.
yeah. And there's a
Then,
lot of different restrictions depending on the municipality, right?
correct.
Yeah. Yeah. I have my stepsister lives in Montreal, so she had to convert her Airbnb to a midterm rental for that exact reason because they got rid of them in the city. So,
Oh, great. You should connect her with us because we do have demand in Montreal and we are trying to grow our portfolio
yeah,
there.
yeah, I'd be happy to do that. Now, in terms of things like lessons, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you faced along the way and something that you think should be on anyone's radar when they're building their portfolio?
Yeah, I think if you take the time to assess the location of where you want to build your midterm,
Yeah,
that that is where you're going to find the most value,
yeah,
right? You can take any house and make it look nice, right? You want a good deal, but if you do want to go to midterm strategy, I would say get something close to university, get something close to a hospital, get something close to transit,
yeah,
and in an area that there are other homeowners
yeah,
and it's comfortable and it's safe.
yeah,
If you're going to buy a cheap house in a shoddy neighborhood, no one's going to want to, people might be okay there for 2 to 3 nights.
yeah.
No
They're
one,
not going to want to be there for like 3 months. Yeah,
and the people who usually do this bring their families or their pets. So think of yard,
yeah,
think of, where would you want to stay? Think of that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that it's going to cost you maybe a little bit more, but you will be able to, in the midterm, make more money. In the
yeah,
midterm,
yeah.
what's going to, yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. On that note, we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Knock, knock. Where are my fellow realtors? How much time are we wasting trying to stay organized? We're trying to juggle our clients, listing presentations, and prevent our database from completely falling apart. It can be a lot, and that is exactly why I started using an app called Knock Knock. It's essentially my personal assistant that never sleeps. It helps me keep my entire property database on my phone. Listings, documents, contracts, it's all there. It lets landlords link their properties. You can build interactive presentations in seconds and send them anytime, anywhere. How cool is that? You can also collaborate with other agents through Knock Knock's private agent network. You can even promote your listings internationally with just one click. If I'm being honest, Knock Knock saves me so much time. It keeps me organized and it helps me close deals faster. If you're serious about growing your real estate business without burning out, you have to give Knock Knock a try. Inspire to Invest is proudly sponsored by Share, a US-based platform designed to help Canadians and Americans invest in rental properties across the United States completely remotely. With Share, you don't have to deal with tenants, repairs, or trying to figure out unfamiliar markets on your own. They handle the entire process for you, from setting up your US entities to sourcing vetted rental properties in landlord-friendly states to managing everything post-close with professional property management. It's a done-for-you turnkey solution designed to give you all the upside of real estate ownership without the typical landlord headaches. If you've been wanting to diversify into US real estate but didn't know where to start, Share could be just the partner you've been looking for. I value transparency, integrity, and trust. If you choose to work with me, you can be assured that business will be conducted honestly and openly. Time is of the essence in this industry, so you can expect nothing short of quick, clear communication from me. I'll keep you informed every step of the way so you feel comfortable throughout this entire process. Our homes are where we eat, sleep, relax, and play. My clients' best interests are at the heart of everything I do. And with this said, my service to you doesn't end when the transaction does. As your realtor, I'll not only help you buy and sell your property, I'll also educate and support you along the way. I want to help you fulfill your goal of home ownership and become your trusted real estate resource for life. I can't wait to share my passion for real estate with you. More importantly, find you the perfect house to turn into your home. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in Durham Region or Toronto? Let's chat. Hey everybody, welcome back to Inspire to Invest. I got Aisha Govani here with me from Midterm Rental Properties, and we're talking about some of the pros and cons to this strategy and some things to look for if this is something that you want to consider with your next real estate investment. Now, one thing I always like to ask people is what's the craziest thing that they've ever experienced as a real estate investor? Is there one crazy story that comes to mind?
Okay. Well, two, I'll talk about when I was little walking in and watching my dad clean feces off of the wall after the tenant left.
And you have to think how and why. Like,
Think they were human. I'm 90% sure they were human, which is makes it worse. I think it's easier to pick up your dog's poop and smear it. I think it's special.
mm,
You can pick up your own.
ugh.
And then the second one was we were filming, Sarah and I did a YouTube show a couple of years ago and we were filming and we opened the door and we walked into the house and a whole like few of pigeons like flew right at us. Literally, they had created a massive nest upstairs and yeah, I
Yeah,
had not seen.
I hope that made like the blooper reel.
And that was part of the blooper reel. But as you know, as a realtor, you when you're invited into people's homes, you just see some wild, yeah, you just see
Yeah,
some
I had that yesterday. I went to a property I'm listing, and it's not in the greatest area. So my husband's like, "Let me just come with you," and I kept being like, "Oh, it's fine. I'll go alone." And he came with me, and he was kind of like, "What's in the shed?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm just here to stick like the for sale sign on the lawn." And we went back, and there's evidence of a squatter living there, and we think that he pieced out when we drove in because everything was still there, like his wallet, his cell phone, his crack pipe. And it looked like he'd been there for a while. And the home has been vacant since the fall of last year. So it's been a while, like 8 or 9 months. So he knows like no one's really there. It's got a huge backyard. And, he had all his toiletries, he had a mirror set up, he had like laundry detergent, like he had like, a mattress, a sleep, everything, right? And all I could think was like, what if I was alone or what if he was there? Like it could have been a very, very unsafe
yeah.
situation and not something I ever would have necessarily expected. But I think when you are going into these situations, like you just have to expect the unexpected. So fortunately, we just reported it to the seller. He's dealing with the police to get it cleared up and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely something to be mindful of if you ever have a property that is vacant for any period of time.
Yeah, I mean, like safety for sure, but I think a lot of the fun is walking in and seeing wallpaper from the 70s and dialed telephones.
Yeah, and those are almost funny things to consider, right? Like,
Yeah, awesome.
so in terms of just building your portfolio right now, so obviously you're working on building this business. Is there something in mind that you're reaching for when it comes for financial freedom or a particular number of doors?
Yeah, so I think what we're really looking to do is be a problem solver, right? Who are the B2B clients who need our service and
Yeah,
what do they need? So how we're sort of looking to scale is by partnering with arbitrageurs or short-term rental property managers
yeah.
Canada and the US. We launched into the US last month, so now we are active in all 50 states. So that is how we would like to grow our portfolio. We're looking for trusted partners who already have their own portfolio, who take care of that portfolio, who care for that portfolio, because I would rather build my business with partnerships and
Yeah.
help other people also make money, than just, try to do this with just Sarah and I. Doesn't make sense. I enjoy camaraderie. I enjoy having colleagues who we do
Yeah.
business together. It's all part of the fun and the growth and having that network of partnerships. So that's kind of what we're looking to do here with midterms is
Yeah.
scale community.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Now, in terms of advice, since you do have a really diverse background and you've kind of touched a lot of different asset classes, what kind of advice would you have for someone that is maybe just getting their feet wet and they're really not sure where to get started?
Yeah, so if you're interested in having a property that's a midterm rental, first, as I mentioned, go and look for a community or a neighborhood or area that you like, that you're privy to, that you want to invest in, and then like specifically target areas near hospitals and near schools, and then consider the costs of what it would be to furnish it, right? Run those numbers. Does that make sense to you? So obviously the cost of purchasing, if you don't already own something, what is it going to take to furnish it? And
Yeah,
then the units are all inclusive. So you're going to have to cover the mortgage, the property tax, the utilities, the
yeah,
lawn care, the heat, the hydro, the internet, the Netflix. So, we can advise you what that list looks like, run those
yeah,
numbers. What is the total, carrying cost each month based on that?
yeah,
You can come to me and say, here's what my carrying cost is. What can you get me on the midterm market?
yeah,
And then like, this is what you can make on the midterm market. Here are your margins. Does this make sense for you? And then we
yeah,
have that conversation. Because if it doesn't make sense, the proof is going to be in the pudding anyway. So I don't want anyone to bring a property that I cannot help you generate income because
yeah,
that makes sense for you or I.
yeah,
So I'll be very honest and tell people that neighborhood is not going to work or that type of property is not going to work. Like
yeah,
basements don't do very well because most homeowners don't want to live in a basement for 3, 6, 9, 12 months. So things like that. We have
yeah,
some basements, but that would be an example.
yeah. Now, and one thing to consider as well is that they have to be fully furnished. Is that something that your company supports investors with, just in terms of getting that done, or do they have to have it fully ready turnkey by the time that you're working with them?
So we actually used to have an arm of the company where we furnished, but that we no longer do that. We do have partners we can connect you with.
Yeah,
Should you wish to not do it yourself, it's two-prong. I can give you a list of all the things you need to consider and you
yeah,
can just run with it, or I can connect you with an interior designer that I know that can do everything virtually. We can connect you with someone that will come in person if you wish. And then, you get the support that you need. But ultimately, it's
yeah,
the homeowners, or their property managers' responsibility to have the place completely furnished and ready to go
yeah.
turnkey.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Do you ever find that people are using an arbitrage method with midterm rentals, or is that just more on the short-term rental side?
More and more because of the tightening of the bylaws, anyone who has Airbnb will tell you it's just the bookings have reduced in the last couple of years. So people are
Yeah,
looking for longer ways, especially to cover in the shoulder season. So a lot of arbitrageurs will have started reaching out saying, cover me, can you cover me from, November
yeah,
to March or whatever? And I'm
yeah,
happy to do it because they're taking care of the property to the level in which it is required for our clients. It
yeah,
needs taken care of professionally, so it's just easier to work with professionals.
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Now, in terms of how investing has changed your life, what do you think it would look like if you didn't go down this path?
Oh, if I hadn't gone into real estate, I was in the nonprofit world. That was my where my heart is. So I would be doing something nonprofity, but ultimately, midterms is more like being an entrepreneur and a business owner
Yeah,
than in real estate. We do real estate deals, but I spend my days doing systems and processes and building a company.
yeah,
Company has given me freedom of time and
yeah,
location. So anything that I could do that will continue to give me the freedom of time and location,
yeah,
is what I would be doing otherwise, because that is where I've realized you can, create the life you want. So,
yeah. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with respect to that. Now, the name of this podcast is Inspired to Invest. So I always like to ask people what's a quote that motivates or inspires them.
oh, that's a great question. I think one is, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step.
Yeah, yeah, no,
That
that's a big one.
goal, and you're like, like that's what I want. You're like, that's cool. I can
Yeah.
just this one action today. I don't have to climb the full tree in one
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, because it can obviously seem really overwhelming and unachievable if you're thinking of that end goal. So you just have to work towards it and reverse engineer it so you can get there. Now, for anyone that wants to get in touch with you or learn more about midterm rental properties, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Yeah, so I can be reached at Aisha at midtermrentalproperties.com, our website, midtermrentalproperties.com, and then you can catch all of our socials at the bottom of that website.
Right. Awesome. So we'll include all of that in the show notes below. Of course, thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. And for anyone that is watching or listening, if you have enjoyed this episode, please make sure that you subscribe and you're followed along at social at Inspired to Invest podcast. And remember, when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to Knock Knock for bringing us this month's episodes of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.